We recording?
We're recording.
Nice. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the budget committee. Calling the meeting to order at 6:31, 1 minute late. My apologies. First order of business, minutes from 9:12.
Have not received those. So
We have
they'll
not
to be at
received
the next
those.
meeting.
Okay,
So can I just ask a question? What is such a long delay with minutes now?
They're done from the recording, by someone and they just have not gotten it to me.
I mean, legally, don't we have, if someone asks for them, we have to meet a certain,
We have to provide them
right?
notes or something. So I will be
I
talking
mean,
to her.
it just seems like before we talked about minutes and I know when there was gonna be the new website, and people said it would make it easier and things would be quicker and
Well, the recordings are being, the recordings are available quickly. The minutes can only be as fast as they're produced by the individual. So that's,
right, but don't we have a legal obligation for in writing if someone asks for them?
To prepare notes. I mean, yeah, it doesn't have to be finished minutes. It has to
Right.
be the notes of some
Right.
sort to prepare.
That's 5-day limit, isn't it?
Yes, 5 business days. So,
So
and I will
if
talk to
somebody
her.
requesting it, we don't have any legal obligation to have the notice.
We're supposed to have them ready within 5 days to be able to hand out.
how many people do we have doing minutes for all the meetings?
We talked to her. For this one, we have one, which this is all she's doing, but she's
Okay.
a staff member that has a lot of other work too. So I'll talk to her and see if she can handle her workload and hand this. If not, we'll have to pay someone to come take minutes.
Oh, so it's a staff person that's doing minutes for this meeting?
I'll find out if she'll be able to do it. If not, like I said, we'll just have to find someone and pay them to do it.
How accurate do they have to be? Google does a pretty good job of translating verbal to written.
They're not supposed to be word for word. We could print that out and say, here's the notes.
Teams does it too. Are we using Teams?
Yeah.
Teams transcribe.
Yeah. Is that legally allowed? We should look into that.
I think
because that
you
would make it
could.
simple.
It's hard. The one thing we would have to do if we wanted to try to do that is every time you speak, you'd have to say your name, so people knew who was talking.
Yeah.
Someone would have to read the entire document after it was generated anyways. So
Yes.
it's probably easier just to write the note.
especially since minutes don't have to have the level of detail that you would get from a transcription.
Yeah, technically minutes are only required to have motions and they don't need to have any of the discussion or anything. We put all that in, but so really,
I was
from our
only-
last meeting, there would almost be nothing that would be a legal minute.
I was only suggesting an automated system for after 5 days and before the real minutes get done. So. we
Does
have
anybody-
something.
How often do people ask about the minutes?
They don't, but we should have them done so we can get them
Right.
posted and people can see them.
So do we know if people look at the recordings?
They do.
They do.
Okay.
Uh.
It's on YouTube, right?
It's
Yes.
on YouTube and
So
they're
we don't-
posted on the website within a couple days usually.
So we know the views. Okay, thank you.
But we will try to get them sooner.
Thank you. Revenue review.
Pull up, we'll highlight revenues and then if you guys want any questions, I will talk a little bit more as we go through this, but I want to highlight it up front. As we talked about last time, we used fund balance and other thing as one-time revenues to write down the tax rate. In preliminary looking at things, that's gonna have a fairly significant impact this year. And then we have some extra revenues from interest that we found. So we're coming into, so we need to have a discussion about kind of what we want to do with that fund balance for this year.
So for
Going
fund
into next year.
balance, it says 452.
What page you on?
Two. So use of fund balance, 452,000 for 2024 budget.
Not all of that was writing down tax rate. We did some projects and some other things.
Right, was it? Like, wasn't
It
it
was
like 100?
So
270
200.
that was used all around to write down.
Right, so how does it go from 270 to 452?
There was, the CIP article, when the
Yeah.
reserve funds were closed, that goes to fund balance, then pulled back out.
Okay,
And there's the $20,000 that funded the police, fund for
okay,
recruitment and retention.
okay,
That was 20,000.
Yeah, there was a lot of little fund balance things that got pushed together.
right. So that 450 is not like, it's not like the 270 number grew. It's
No.
other things were added and then removed. They were just using fund balance as a pass through.
Yeah.
Okay,
But we used $100,000 and there's a little bit more in there that's writing down the one time. So fund balance we used for one-time projects is
Yeah.
just that they offset, they're not affecting the tax rate, but the $100,000 and some of that does. The 75,000 we found in interest this year will, if we allow it to, it'll be pretty much the same thing as writing down the tax rate.
Okay.
So we can have that discussion. We probably should discuss it after, but I'll go ahead and introduce it here that
Okay.
We'd have to do a little bit more research, but we're fairly confident the way it is that we can say, hey, we voted to use 100,000 in fund balance, but we found this revenue that we didn't think we were gonna do, so we can use, 75,000 in fund balance and still make the $100,000 write down if we want. If not, in essence, we're using 175 to write down the tax rate, even though that wasn't the initial plan. So just something to think about. We will have some time. We don't have to make a decision tonight or something. It's something that we can kick around for a while. We'll have a lot better figure on what the actual interest rate's gonna be. We'll have the little bit better idea, hopefully fairly soon, what the tax rate will be looking like before we make that final decision.
so don't we have to make that decision before the tax rate?
Yeah, but we will get something. We always get something and they're like, look over this, make adjustments if you need to make adjustments, and we'll figure out a way to meet with you, even if we need an extra meeting to do that, to
Yep.
have that discussion of what we want to do.
Okay,
So the total revenue for 2023 was 2 million and change, 2,086,000. Is that right? I'm just wondering why the budget was so much higher, that big jump. I'm sure there's a good reason.
So that doesn't include the auditor's adjustment, which has not been done for 2023, for the interfund transfers, which is that 1.577 that you see.
So that 2,086,000 is actually should be higher.
Yes, it should be 3.
And that happens after the auditor's report.
The auditor does an internal adjustment.
And the reason that the year-to-date actual is so low at 1.1 is that we're waiting for a bunch of the taxes, property taxes to come in.
Not just property tax, but we will have property taxes, but all the state money, or most of the state money that comes in later in the year. We have a lot of our revenue comes in this portion, so.
Right.
We're expecting, about 400,000 for rooms and meals. That doesn't come until December.
Okay. And the reason 2025 is so much less than the budget of 24 is what?
at 450,
We'll be going through that a little bit, and then we do have some of the fund balance that was written in that,
Oh, is that the 450?
that's a big part of it. That use of fund balance. So that's why we said last year,
Never should have done it.
it's a double whammy
It
because
is.
Yeah.
It certainly is.
Because even if you hold your budget at zero this year compared to last year, taxes will go up because you wrote down taxes last year using.
But not all of that revenue for 2024 is going to be applied towards the tax rate.
Yes,
So the $20,000 for the police improvement and retention fund is going into a fund. So that's not really affecting these things.
the one-time project,
It's,
the one-time projects are one-time projects, and so it won't be 452 that's the impact, but closer to the
It'll be-
270 or somewhere in
Right.
that range that you're just adding to the tax rate this year
Essentially
instead of
the-
last year.
The 100,000 that we did to write off taxes, and then the 100,000 that we used to lower the CIP. Right, those are really we're gonna cut revenue by using other
Both.
sources. Now. This year they're back.
You gotta make it back up.
Question on licensing. So,
What page?
page 1. So it has been on a downward trend.
You want us to go through this first? She
Sure.
might answer your question.
Okay. Let's see.
I'm pretty sure I'll answer that question. So just going through the highlighted sections real quick. Overlay and abatements we put up, which is actually a negative on your revenue. We put that up because of the reassessment. The assessor or the assessing assistant said we may want to be somewhere closer to 100,000, but
Why?
I didn't want to go that high, just from people coming in and asking for abatements. They do have to be approved by the select board. But, I think we need to be pretty honest with ourselves, whether they're need to be abated or not. We shouldn't just be nice because we want to be nice.
What's the percentage of getting an abatement?
I don't know what the percentage is, but if it seems reasonable, we often have given them, but I think we need to be pretty strict, not strict this year, but we need to really look and say, is this a reasonable request or is it just someone trying to get lower taxes? So we will be looking at that. So I put it at 50,000. We can adjust that if we want, but I do think, you know, we haven't really been using the 35. I think that gives us the cushion we need, without overinflating that number.
So 2023 actual was 0. And year-to-date
So
actual
far.
is 0.
So far.
So far.
So it gives us some room with the abatements, but it's there. It's also something that we can adjust going into tax rates, I think, so. Doesn't look good at budget setting time, but it allows us to do it. I'd rather do it this way than go in to next November going, we need a lot more in there and telling everybody we're gonna have this much of a rate increase and it's. Anyway, I think 50,000 is the right number, but it is something we can discuss.
So I should know the answer, but can you explain, how does that work? So somebody. Is that $50,000 simply means,
It should be something really realistic.
Like they couldn't live in their
Select
house
board
for some
too.
reason.
No, or like they couldn't live their house or they come in and April 1st and they go, I got my reassessment. I never came in before. I got this back. It says I have a 3-bedroom house. I have a 2-bedroom house. Okay, we'll make the adjustment. The
Got
select
it.
board can abate the tax difference. Not all the taxes, just the difference of what it would have been. And I think we'll see more of them than normal coming out of the reassessment than we will in a normal.
And you typically do.
Your question or your comment, we've used 0, we've used 0. They said you should bump it from 35 to 100. I think 50 is that happy medium. It gives us a little bit of room, but it's not. I don't think it's overly excessive. I would like it lower, but I think this is the year to have it where it's at. If we scroll down to motor vehicle fees, we were on a downward trend. You're right. I talked with Wendy. We have surpassed this year, or we're on our way to surpassing this year by a good amount. We did the math, just figuring it out, and we think 1,150,000 is a pretty good number that we'll be hitting this year. We can watch that through the rest of the year and see where we're actually coming in. Also bringing crystal ball out just slightly with interest rates dropping and talk of them continue dropping. I think we'll see some more new cars, those types of things.
so question. So with 9 months added to 12 gone, why she think we're ahead? Because if I do 774 divided by 9 times 12, I get 1,033,000, which is almost spot on. Does she know we have more people
We may
renewing?
not have all of that revenue entered in here at this
Okay.
point. And all of the months are not the same. Some of them are lower than others.
And she knows, she knows that.
And it's a number we can watch. Like I said, I felt fairly confident bumping it back up to there. We can watch it come to the end of the year. We can always make an adjustment in December or January if needed, but I think it's a good number. Rooms and meals tax, I left the same. This is another one, and I talked about this last time with the change in the law, with the reduction in the tax, but the increase in the percentage that goes to the towns. I guess it's just throwing darts right now to know what it's gonna be. I think the legislature adjusted that interest rate thinking they'll keep our payment about the same. But until we get that payment in December, like Elisa said, we really won't know what we're getting and what we have, and when that comes in, we'll be able to take a lot better educated guess at what we're gonna have.
Actually, typically the state knows when DRA sets the tax rate, they typically know what the number is for
So we
Philly.
might be able to.
So we
find
might
out.
know it in October, but we don't know it yet.
Back in the previous category, what are franchise fees?
That's what we get from the cable. We'll
Cable,
talk about
thank
that
you.
in expenses. I got
Yeah,
that highlighted. As well. But yeah, that's the cable fee, franchise fee.
That's the one where we give 30 to get 60,
Right, yes.
the one that you brought up last week.
Kind of. We're gonna talk
Yeah.
about that.
Okay.
Okay, ambulance, I just upped that 5,000. We're starting to see a little bit of a pickup in billing, and as I mentioned last time, they're responding more. And I'm just gonna assume that responding more should be a little bit more of a revenue increase, but I didn't want to go up too much.
So when we provide the service, who ends up chasing the person that the person that was transported in the ambulance? Who chases that?
The billing,
Yeah,
we have a medical billing service
That does
that
that.
bills. We give them kind of the parameters. We do a soft billing here in town, so they bill and they contact the insurance company a couple times, and hopefully we get insurance payments.
yeah,
And then it just kind of goes away from there. So,
yeah. So they try and then they probably a couple of times and then they just write it off.
And this,
We have an amount, I mean, they try, and I'm gonna talk to them a little more. Me and Roy was talking about this today about how many times they try and push and do a little bit, but
But they never get to the point of legal action.
no, or collections or anything like that. And
So
I wrote an internal policy that after like 24 months of it sitting there, then we write it off the books. And
The major problem with people who simply do not have insurance?
not really,
Not
because last I heard, talking to Roy again, who did a lot of the work on this, we had about 5% of Enfield was uninsured. So it's not a large amount of uninsured people. It's
So is it insurance companies that are just flagrantly ignoring?
Well, when
some might, others are people that, you know, they have a portion of the bill they're supposed to pay and they don't pay it, those types of things.
Why does it not go to collections?
Because the select board has decided that we were gonna soft bill.
That's not a decision made
right?
several years ago.
It could be.
Why? Just because people can't afford to pay type of thing?
Yeah, I think that was part of it. We didn't feel the town ought to be in the business of collecting.
A little bit of it too, on the flip side is, it's a service paid for by the taxes, of the taxpayers, and they get the service. Do you really chase them for the billing of it or not? And it's a question for the select board to have.
Yeah. Any interest in changing that, or do you think that's? I don't want to be, difficult with people, but I mean,
I could express my personal opinion,
please.
and I feel like that, same way I feel about the town not creating a fund to help people's septic systems. Right? There's certain things that are personal.
Yeah.
However, my gut feeling of the select board is, I think it'd be a hard sell.
Yeah.
The other thing is you can do the billing, but there's a cost to that, a collection cost. And what's the net out gonna be out of that? Is it gonna be worth it? And
Well, typically what you do is that you have someone that pays for themselves by doing the collections, right? Yeah, like in a normal business, that's what you do. And if it doesn't work, you don't do it. You don't chase it. If it does, if it's worth it, you do it. But I sort of agree with John. I'm not sure we should, although we chase property taxes, right? There's consequences. If you don't pay your property tax. So,
It's a larger sum of money, I think.
yeah.
Of course,
So you
another
can pay
kicker
it
is
internal.
that Medicare is.
Also a good point.
about whether or
I
not
missed
they
that.
pay
It's
for the
internal.
ambulance.
We're not hiring somebody to go out
to
and
do it.
chase people. We do it all ourselves.
Mechanism.
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, sorry. I said Medicare, another issue is, and from working at the hospital and billing, Medicare is pretty picky about whether or not they pay for that ambulance ride. It has to meet a certain criteria before they will pay for that. So if they don't, and the person only has Medicare and has no supplement, then yeah, that bill's gonna go to the person getting the ride.
And other insurances are likewise, picky.
Well, and yeah, and they often will say, well, thanks for billing us 1,500, we'll pay 5. That's it.
And another way to look at it as a resident of town, if you're paying property taxes, you're paying for the ambulance and then you're paying again.
Well, so the other way to look at it is that if we're not collecting the money from the person that used the service, the other taxpayers are taking on that burden. Now, is it significant? Probably not, but it's a fact.
So I go select board.
Well, I mean, I sort of agree with
Yeah.
John about it.
You don't have to like it to agree with it.
Yeah, I don't know all the history of the ambulance service. Gene, I don't know if you know, was it free at one time?
It was,
I had that suspicion, right?
it was.
Well, the reason I talk about it is that my former town, it was a huge win for the town, ambulance service in Massachusetts. And thank God I'm not there any longer. But it was significant win. for the
Well, they
town.
probably did transports.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the details.
Most emergency service ambulances will lose money.
Yeah.
Transport ambulances that transport between hospitals, there's money to be made there. I know, I worked for an ambulance in Idaho and we lost 500,000 a year
Really?
in emergency medical.
Huh. I'll have to get some details on that. Not that it would make a difference.
No, and it's just all in how it's ran and what you do.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just bumped ambulance up slightly. Is there a little bit more revenue to be had there? Maybe. We're at 13,000 this year. Maybe we could trickle that up a little bit more. I also like to be conservative on the revenue side.
So quick question on the revenue. If the revenue ends up being higher, right? Taxes that get set by the DRA simply become lower.
Say that again, did you?
So if the revenue for 2023 ends up being higher than what we have budgeted, it simply means that DRA is gonna set a lower tax rate.
Yeah, so that's what happens in November or October when we're setting this tax rate coming up pretty soon. We just filled out another form saying, here's what we think our actual revenues are gonna be this time of year. And this is where we can have that discussion about the 75,000 that we got from an interest revenue that we didn't plan for, that, you know, we can just let that fall into this year. Our revenues will be higher, it'll push the tax rate down. But it'll impact next year because it's a one-time revenue. I mean, we're not expecting that much interest again. And
we're not allowed to let it roll to next year, right?
no, but what we can do, I think, is make the decision to not use as much fund balance as we had planned, because we budgeted that. We didn't put a warrant article out saying we're gonna use this much fund balance to do that. We budgeted for that, so I think we can make that adjustment and say, we're gonna use 25,000 in fund balance and this 75,000 in interest revenue that we found to equal the 100 we planned to do. And then the fund balance will stay in the.
Which will make the jump for next year less,
It'll make it
Because this-
more closer to what we planned. Yeah.
right?
It'll still be there, but,
Right. Okay,
and then we can talk. Not that we want to use fund balance, but we
Yes.
can talk about that $75,000 if we
$1,000
decide to
again.
do that.
that makes sense.
Recreation, I really just wanted to point this out. We budgeted 67,000 last year. That was recreation and regional sports. Now that we have the regional sports fund set up, we looked at just putting the entire amount that we think we'll get from sports and from the town paying into this regional sports into the revenue for regional sports. And then putting the recreation at what we're hoping to get this year.
Got it.
So we're gonna underrun the revenue budget for recreation for sure. That's what you're saying, because we.
45, 6
It
thousand.
gets split into two.
Oh,
That's what he's saying.
this is
There's a
year
new
to date.
fund.
What
I'm not following.
additional funds are we getting from for recreation?
Well, we
For the
will
remainder of the
start,
year?
we just started our first season, so we're gonna get all the registration revenue for people signing up for recreation. And then each of the 5 towns get a bill
Right,
to pay in, and that revenue.
And they normally
goes to
do?
the Recreation. We've had all of them pay except one this year.
that's right. So why did we budget 67 if we knew that?
Well, we knew it would be a partial year. So we'll be moving some money into that. So I think we're gonna be pretty close to the 67. I
Oh.
don't think we're gonna be way under.
Okay,
We have some revenue coming in. We actually have to pay some revenue in. We haven't paid yet because we have a
Right.
portion to pay as well.
sure.
But the reason why the budget is going down from 67 to 40 is because you're now planning it across 2 counts.
But it's actually going from 67 to 76 between those 2 lines.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's a
Yes.
big increase.
See the
And
36 lower down.
And we might refine those a little as we move forward, but that's what we have in there for now, and we think it's a pretty good number. The
Yep.
40,000, we're watching a little bit closer. The 36 is still gonna be a little bit of a guess, just based on participation in youth sports, those types of things.
Okay.
Sale and lease of municipal property, this one's quite a bit higher. I'm not gonna go into details, but the select board's working with the developer on Shit Street, and so I think that's a pretty decent number to have in there for this year.
Do we have a timeline for Shed Street, Ed? I mean, it just feels to me, having been on the budget committee before, that it's like we've been talking about Shed Street forever.
We're in I don't wanna say final stage, we're in the deeper stages of a letter of intent
Okay.
with the developer, and then they're gonna have to go through the planning process, all those things
Okay.
before the actual sale happens, so. We're definitely a lot closer than we were when I started.
So
We're hoping to
cleanup is
get that
down.
done. The cleanup is pretty much done. The DES wants a little bit more groundwater testing, so we're gonna be doing that, but we're moving forward.
Did
toward
the state
sale of
pick up
that.
stuff that they dumped over there yet?
No,
So annoying.
I'm half tempted to just take some loaders and push it back up on the rail trail.
Please don't.
I'll get there again.
We'll have some liability there if you do.
Well, I gotta work through them through a few other projects where I need their help, and then we'll do
Then,
that. And then interest on investments, I put that up to 20,000. I've been talking with Sasha, we still have some building money. I'll know a little bit more when we get closer on what will actually, the CDs that we're planning on getting will be done by the time we set the budget, so we should know that number a lot more, but I just bumped it up to 20,000 based on kind of what we've done so far and where we're at, trying to get some more interest revenue for next year.
So you're thinking that 46 is gonna keep going up to about 75?
Yes.
Yeah, that's based on the ones that are gonna be maturing here.
Yep.
Pretty soon. So, and then what I'm talking to her about right now, we're looking at interest rates right now, we're looking at moving another 4.5 million into a short-term 3-month CD. I told her I don't want to open it until deep enough into October that we mature in 2025, so it's next year's revenue. I don't want more revenue into this year.
And so the interest hits your books when the CD closes.
Yep.
Not every month. It's just, it's all at once at the end.
Otherwise, it's not compounding.
Got it.
So we'll continue. I'll say that we'll continue playing with the building money as we're moving through the projects. We may even be able to get one more cycle of that with a smaller amount, but I don't want to put that in there till I know we got it in there, so.
Yep.
So that's really it for revenues. We continue looking at those. Because of fund balance mainly and the writing down of the tax rate, we're gonna be down a little bit on revenues this year. Will impact the tax rate. I was hoping to be able to say, here's what we're projecting today, but what I learned about the state of New Hampshire even more than I knew is we can't until they do all their magic at tax rating time. There's way too many formulas that go into figuring that out. So we can look at overall expenditures and then we can look at revenues. It's gonna give you a pretty good idea.
Any questions?
I have a couple of questions, Ed. I'm just curious, and I know it's not big numbers we're talking about, but, at the transfer station, what do we have at the transfer station that generates any type of revenue?
Not a lot. It's mostly, you know, air conditioners, bigger things that they actually
Refrigerators.
charge for. Yeah.
What
We
about,
have had some discussions and we don't have a full-fledged plan, but we have had some discussions about charging for solid waste disposal. That's something we could talk about a little bit more.
and what about like metal or any of that sort of stuff?
We don't charge for metal. We do get some money back and it's really based on the metal market. We get a little bit of revenue back from that. But, you know, depending on what metal prices are doing, sometimes the hauling out outweighs what we actually get back, and sometimes we make a little bit of money on that. So we've been getting a lot of metal this year, so I don't know where it would fall in our revenues, but
It's under the, solid waste and recycling. Subject to charges.
It's right there. Top of the page.
Oh, well, that's transfer
That's
station.
ticket.
It's,
Oh,
should be a solid waste and recycling line. I thought it was. Well, up right here, it's all by itself on this top line.
Oh, there is
It must have a big note, but I can't see.
year to date actual 15,600.
Just says we're in space. We're a little down at the moment. I know that a week or so ago, I talked to Jim and they were gonna have another poll because it was full. So we'll hopefully be getting more revenue out of the metal dumpster.
again, that was one when we did the budget, looked like it was down a little bit. If we end up being closer to budget, we can back up.
And when was the last time that we had any kind of price increase for rental of facilities in town?
Been a while. I definitely think that that's something we can discuss and make a recommendation to the select board. I do think the $50 fee or whatever for the community building is extremely low.
Yeah.
And you just did the floor, and last time I knew it wasn't being swept regularly still. So you had some fees.
It gets swept at least weekly. We don't
Yeah, so
do it
that's not
more than
enough.
that. Yeah. We would have to hire someone to do that.
Yeah.
That's my only question.
Or you require regular fees to keep it that way. I don't know.
That's a tough one.
That's a
That's-
tough one, but.
yeah.
People are supposed to
But you
do
try to,
cleanup
I do
after
understand,
themselves.
it's no running.
You'd still have to hire someone to go check them.
But checking is faster.
I certainly agree. I'm sure the select board would agree that that's pretty low fees.
The 50 for so many hours or for,
It's for a half day, yeah, 4 hours.
Next budget topic? I'm good. If administration,
Okay, we'll go through the administration budget. We're gonna do this very, very similar. You guys have the entire budget. Um, As I had asked at the beginning, we bolded and added this. We didn't do it last year, but I wanted to put, the section of kind of what that entire department or division of a department would have for a budget. We will go through some line items that are changing, but, you know, I'd like the budget committee to focus on the bigger overall numbers and where we're headed. With that, meeting and hearing records, we wanted to point this out. We budgeted 500 last year. We're budgeting 1,800 this year. What had happened, we had a staff member doing minutes. We didn't really pay them extra to do minutes. It was part of their time that they did at work. They had told us that they were gonna not do that anymore. It was just too much work for them to do them both. So we asked and hired Whitney Banker to do them, so the $1,800 is what we need to pay her to do minutes. Printing has gone down quite a bit. The one thing we wanted to talk about, there was some discussion about downsizing the town report to save some money. With 50 fewer pages, it looks like it goes down not quite $300 from 1,821 to 1,589. So we just picked a number. If we were able to cut 50 pages out, this is what it would look like. So you guys could talk about that and see if we want to go to the select board and talk about whittling it down or not. And then the municipal calendar has not been budgeted in here. So that was a part of it. We had a discussion with the select board not to do it for 2024. We didn't budget for 2025. That decision wasn't made at the select board level, but, if we wanted to do that, we would have to add $5,500 for printing and $1,300 for postage on the calendar. So that calendar cost us, what is that, $6,800 to do every year.
Okay.
Plus staff time. Yeah, a lot of staff time. What do you estimate, like 40 of your hours, or was it more?
I estimated 80 hours, and that's probably light over the amount of time that I work on.
If we want to continue down, postage is down $800. Repairs and service contracts, we've been working with SimQuest to negotiate new leases. Overall, our copier lease has gone down, but some of the other stuff is a little bit more expensive, so going from $1,000 to $1,525.
So this is gonna differ. The reason it's got a big black box around it is your big budget has it at $2,333. But the copier costs came in lower, so we'd like to reduce that to the $1,525. And the total executive line was adjusted by that amount. Savings,
So we put a box around that. It's
just to, I like that.
miscellaneous went from 300 to 5,000. We just did that because we're getting ready to move back into Whitney Hall and want to put a little bit of money here and there for things that are going to be, I'm going to say unexpected, but things that we're going to need moving into a new building. With that, the total executive, not just these, but everything in the budget has gone up 4.16%. Elections and vital. We added some time in vital overtime for vacation, sick coverage. There's been a little bit of time this year anyway, where she's worked long on election weeks, the deputy clerk, so there's some full overtime there. But, still not a large amount, but we wanted to put some more there. And then election expenses decreased a lot because we only have one election next year. I'll take a little time there to let you guys know the select board did write a thank you letter to them, but food at this last election was donated by Jake Scusanos and George's. And so normally we pay for food at all the elections, so it was nice to have some partners in town that would help to donate that.
Quick question before we move on the detailed one. So internet overran the budget and you budgeted less than what it's currently at?
Well,
This year, we had a one-time fee for the website, upgrade. It
Okay,
was supposed to fall in the year before, and we got the invoice late, so we paid it in this year.
okay,
and we also
Thank you.
had some little bit, but not much, but we had some duplication with moving Whitney Hall. And we had internet over there, and we still had internet down, I'm gonna say at Whitney Hall, but we shared internet with the police, so there were just some extra expenses there that we're not gonna have next year.
okay.
So if we continue down on the finance, we look at travel. That was up to $1,000. This travel includes mileage, lodging, meal allowance for final 2-year finance certificate program. You will see this offset, and I don't know if I put it on my thing here, but in the education line, there's 0 budgeted. She got a scholarship to attend this finance training, so a little bit of money in the travel line for her to travel these classes, but
That's the treasurer.
no, that's our bookkeeper.
Okay.
Postage has decreased from 16,000 to 10,000. Mostly because of the reval year was last year, so we're bringing that back down. Repairs and service contracts, that's decreased slightly. And then we did make another change to it, if you see that block again. We re-added some things up, looked at some costs that we got, and we believe we can go down to 21,500. So
That's again because of the copiers and came in lower.
the next line that we were highlighting was the professional development, as I said, where we budgeted nothing. GIS special project, this is a project that we planned to do last year. We're not gonna get it done. They had come to us and as part of the GIS upgrade that we were gonna do this year, they talked and showed us a module for advanced search capabilities. It's a lot cheaper if we add them at one time than if we do them at 2 times. And it'll make a really big difference, mostly in land use, but it'll be really nice to be able to do searches. I mean, one thing we're talking right now at the select board is the septic rule. If we had this tool, we could very easily like circle 250 feet from the edge of the lake, push go, and it'll search all the abutting properties. And so it'll make things a lot nicer. So we budgeted $3,100 for the upgrade in our GIS system there. The other thing this will allow us to do, and this is what we were gonna implement this year, is we would have the ability, instead of the company, have the ability to upload building permits, septic designs, anything that comes into our office, we could PDF and upload right into GIS on the parcel, so everybody would have access to see what's going on. So I think it'd be a really good thing. It would really open up, not only make it easier for us to find those files instead of going to the filing cabinet and digging through, it would make it at home. If you wanted to know if your neighbor had a building permit and something was going on, you could click on the parcel and they would open up and you can see if there was a building permit there. Going down, tax collector, deputy tax collector, we moved those. One, the tax collector was moved to the vitals budget because that's where most of their time is spent. And then the deputy tax collector, we moved that to the personnel part-time. Just makes it a little bit easier for us to track and do reporting and those types of things. On the finance IT side of the budget, this is gonna be changing for a little while. I want to highlight it, but we have 15,000 scheduled for 6 replacement PCs. May be able to pull that down a little bit, but I'll be looking at it. We're also gonna purchase a shared laser printer for supervisors of the checklist, which will make things a lot easier. when we get moved back into Whitney Hall, they'll have their own office, they'll have access to their own printer, it'll be a lot better.
Hey, why are those just so expensive, the PCs? Are they high-end PCs?
They're usually about, I think the PCs themselves are $1,200 to $1,500, and then labor and stuff to set them up and get them ready.
Oh, that must be,
Comes in
I mean, because you can get
3,000.
a very powerful machine for 1,000, right? 1,200, like you said, but.
Yeah.
So the real money must be in the setup.
Some of it's set up, there's also docking stations, those types of things that go along with them, so
So they're laptops.
they're laptops, you walk in, click them into the docking station and they work. Overall, they're right in that $1,200 to $1,500 range.
Laptops needed, they use them at home.
Some of them use them at home. We do give a lot of flexibility. It's really nice when those types of people go to conferences that they can take it with them. They can check emails, they can take notes, they can do those types of things. It gives us, I mean, we learned a lot of that in COVID, that we pretty much shut down because we couldn't. They had to scramble and get a lot of laptops. We did the same in Claremont. And then it also adds resiliency. If something was to happen, Whitney Hall burns up, we can grab laptops, watch over, boom. It's a lot easier and there's no cost difference. PC's about the same cost. Checked.
Yeah. Give or take, but you have a lot more problems with laptops. They don't last as long.
But we do have
Is this
5
a
years.
capital expense that could be in the CIP?
I mean,
We've actually taken it out. I mean, you could talk about it, it wouldn't be paid for with CIP money. Even if it went into CIP plan, it should be budgeted. We're gonna be buying 5 to 6 a year, every
Right.
year. So
It's not a. one-
That's why we took radios out, because they were buying them every year.
yeah. And they have a 5-year lifespan. Under our IT contract, we replace our computers every 5 years. So. Software is still a little high. I think we're gonna be able to bring that down, but I left it. I'm waiting for SimQuest to get us a full budget plan for the year, so that might just move around. I didn't want to take it out and then put it back in. I'd rather start high and pull down a little bit. IT infrastructure, data backup, those types of things, $10,000.
Year-to-date's high.
Yeah, we did our big Microsoft transfer
Oh, sure.
into Microsoft government. It cost a little more than we thought. I actually paused the program. We have a little bit more to do next year, but I said
Never fun.
we've got to stop. And then the 68.9 that you see in there, miscellaneous technology, that's the finance software that I talked about. I decided right now we'll put it in. We can have the discussion. If it ends up coming back out, it comes back out, but I'd rather it be in there when we're looking at the numbers in the beginning than add it later. Part of that 32, we are gonna be making a change, so it's not gonna all go away. I just got the price today. We need a new server in the town hall, and that's at about $20,000 to put a new server in. And then our IT service contract, we have in there at 52,000. IT's up. Obviously, we have the finance software in there, a few other things, but like I said, we'll be talking about that as we move forward. Legal advice, we bumped up a little bit. We're over budget right now. Partially, we were going over budget anyway. That's part of the reason I bumped it up. And then with the ZBA appeal going on, we're gonna have a little bit more legal expenses coming up this year. Health insurance, I wanted to point this out. We actually went up from last year in the budget. This does not reflect our health insurance change that we're still working on. Again, I wanted to leave it in there, but I do think we're gonna have a significant reduction in health insurance. So you'll see that pull things down quite a bit when we actually make that final decision. Employer paid retirement, New Hampshire retirement, that's up some because we're fully staffed now. And then section 125 FSA, we put that in here. The year-to-date actual is high. There's actually something miscoded into there. Some of the, these are the admin fees, and we actually coded some of the reimbursement for claims into there, and I gotta get that. Just wanted to point it out so people weren't confused why we were so high and budgeting low again.
So this includes health insurance for all employees, not just, is there?
Water, sewer have some,
Water and sewer is separate.
yeah, there's a little bit pulled out for water, sewer.
And,
but-
and theirs will reflect the higher numbers as well right now,
Right, sure.
but yeah, they'll come down.
Are we still paying out the longevity, the difference people that are long-term employees pay less, significantly less?
We do right now. I'm waiting till we get final figures from the health insurance companies, but I've talked to some of the ones that are significantly less and said, as your co-pay comes down, we may take this opportunity to transition everybody to 81.
Your good timing.
So it won't really hit them in the
Affect them too
wallet.
much.
They just won't save as much as everyone. So, well, 3 of the 5 that are on it were in agreement. So they understood, so. Where am I now? Insurance, property liability, that went up a little bit based on maximum increase. We haven't actually got our number, but it's, if we add the maximum increase in there, that's what it is. So when we get our actual premiums, we may be able to pull that down a little bit. Cable access channel, here's where we can have our big discussion. I budgeted nothing. I've been doing a little bit of research, talking to NHMA. I've read our contract. I did some federal law searching on what franchise fees are. Nothing in there talks about public access TV. I truly believe now that the franchise fees are just franchise fees to the town for allowing the franchise to be here. We've had some discussion and we did put some money in the budget to upgrade some of our technology, outfit Whitney Hall with some technology to continue doing like what we do with the OWL and better live stream and be able to produce our own minutes or recordings for every meeting, hopefully over the next year or two. So what we'd like to do is transition that, and we'll talk with the select board and others as we do this, but transition that money and start using it for communication to our residents, and we'll still be using that money for that purpose. It'll help us outfit some things, but I do recommend at this time that we not pay the cable access channel next year.
That probably means that goes away, right?
Huh?
That probably means that that goes away.
The public access,
Yeah.
probably.
Do we know that people are using that?
We don't know. I've talked to Comcast. They don't have the ability to track if people are actually watching it. And I talked to our Comcast people and they said they don't save that data. So
But if we do away with that, Ed, then maybe I'm getting this confused with, do we then not get that revenue?
no, I believe we still get
Yes,
the
you
revenue.
will.
Oh, okay.
So I would like to use it for the next couple years, maybe not all of it even next year, but use it to start upgrading all of our meeting rooms so we can record every meeting. We can post them on our website. I can even do a little bit more research about what it takes to actually post them to public access if we want to. I bet it's not that difficult since we're recording them anyway.
revenue are you talking about, chief?
Franchise revenue.
Franchise fees, $60,000-ish in franchise
I
fees.
thought you were paying.
No,
We
no.
get about 60,000. It was like 58 last year. And then we've been paying half of that to the public access TV channel to run. So we've been keeping about 30 and paying them about 30.
So we don't really know that people use that, and on top of that, we're posting things on YouTube
And the website.
and the website. So if we drop that service for the TV channel, it's not like we no longer give people access, they just have to
Right.
go to a different place to get it.
Right.
No, and we can actually not only get better equipment to do it better, but we can start to bolster and really get out the information about the site.
The cable access channel no longer broadcasts town meetings.
Huh.
They stopped.
Right,
You remember the gentleman who used to?
Yeah.
yeah. You don't see him anymore,
No,
anyway,
and they no longer record any of the committee meetings or anything like that.
right,
So why do we pay them?
right.
So what are they doing?
The
They're
planning
collecting
board.
$30,000 from us.
Someone himself, Jim is, always recording planning board meetings.
Oh, yes.
Bonner.
But it goes to YouTube.
Does it?
It is not on the cable access channel.
Yeah, so
Well then,
there's the
no
answer to our
objection.
question.
So I'll continue doing the research to make sure we're in the good. But it is something we do. We charge 4% on the cable bills, or they do. We can charge up to 4% or up to 5% for cable franchise fees. Right now, we do 4% at the time. So, just so you know, that's my proposal as of right now, unless I learn something different. So as we come down, human services, we pretty much kept them the same. I wanted to highlight rent because it looks off with us paying 9,000, putting 20,000 in there. It only takes a few people needing a month or two's worth of rent to really crank that up. So I do recommend we level fund that. And it is also something on the flip side that we cannot deny them. So it's good to have enough money in there so we're not having to scramble and take it from somewhere else, but I also don't want to over budget. So you'll look at the rest of those lines. We didn't highlight them in your packet, but we just level funded human services this year. On the administration side, we went up slightly. You know why that? Do we have a note in there? Just pointing out that
Oh, but this one,
oh, that's just a subtotal. Okay,
this is the
never mind.
subtotal, that's the subtotal of the administration because they are separate in your budget worksheets.
So we did that just to total that total human service line to show that there was a slight increase there. That was more than likely due to the compensation increases that we've put in there. Other cultural resources, we put $500 in the historic records under the historian. Again, moving into Whitney Hall, we moved her out of Revolve. I'm sure there's gonna be some shelves and a few things that need to be purchased, so small amount of money there to help outfit that office. And then Old Home Days, we get questions about this, but we budget nothing. And then they have their trust fund that they can pull from, and they usually have money coming in, and usually the money coming in more than pays for what they're
We
doing.
never take any investment. Right?
No, at year end, we have the expenses that are in the budget we should show in the budget here, and we have the revenues, and then we figure out the difference. So if the expenses exceed the revenues that year, we take some from the trust fund. If the revenue exceeds the expense, we deposit it. But it's all done here.
Yeah, so we don't actually budget for that if it offsets it.
And speaking of trust funds, I know I had brought this up early on about, I just wanted to sort of bring it to the surface again about whether or not there are any trust funds sitting out there, big or small, that could be used for things. I mean, I know that has to go before the voters to be voted on, but
So all of the trust funds have a specific purpose. There's a big long list of cemetery trust funds you'll see in the town report. We only get the interest from that. In the revenue report, I think there's $247 we got last year from those. So they're all very small, but we cannot touch the principal
On the trust funds, there
on the
are
trust funds.
some maintenance funds and stuff for cemetery that I think sat fairly dormant for a long time, and we have used those over the past couple of years for some cemetery maintenance and projects and things. So we'll continue to look at that. We'll look at the reserve funds. I haven't put a lot of time in that yet, but as we get closer on the budget and look at this, we can really look through those and study and see if there's something we can use to help offset some costs.
back a little bit on insurance and time of pay. That's a pretty substantial chunk of money. What's the age distribution of employees? Are we expecting a big lump up in retires?
We don't, but that's ran by the state of New Hampshire. So they tell us how much percentage of their salary that we have to pay into the fund.
But are there gonna be a lot of, suddenly a lot more people who are retired?
There'll be a few coming up that I know of, but that doesn't,
Not a big. pool.
that doesn't change. That really doesn't change the amount that we pay out. So we pay a certain amount of every employee's salary into
I see,
the
okay.
retirement.
So,
Because the expendable trust fund is different. What is it?
Expendable trust funds, we can use the principal on. Well, they're set up for a specific purpose. So there's the cemetery maintenance expendable trust. They would use that to do cemetery maintenance.
In the old home days.
That's an expendable trust, yes.
So. I don't know if Shirley can help with this one, but we put trail maintenance in there. We budgeted $1,000 last year. It was the first year we budgeted for trail maintenance. I know trail maintenance has been done, but I don't think he had to buy a lot of supplies.
Well, we still do it. He was here a few minutes.
No,
He was
He
back.
was back.
He left. He told me just recently that he hadn't done much in the summer. That he had quite a few projects he's gonna be doing this fall.
Okay,
And he's gonna, come to a conservation committee.
okay.
So there will be
There you go.
expenditures
There'll be
this
some
fall.
expenditures. We want to put another $1,000 toward trail maintenance to continue
I
maintaining.
think he thought this was the Conservation Commission meeting.
Oh, pardon me. Oh, do you think that's what it was? Could be. It's Thursday night.
And then the rest of these, I'm not gonna go through them. If you guys have questions, we can, but it's just our debt service and stuff. We wanted to put them in there just because they're
Why
big.
is it dropped?
What?
Why is that dropping?
One.
Oh, because of the actual this year, we have that extra payment we're making.
Yeah, but the 2024 budget was 909 and it goes down to 709.
Total Donham debt service.
Like
That's a
why,
good question. I don't know what that, well,
Where do you,
oh, but
why is our total principal
thank you.
going down by by like 200,000?
principal payments are low. Let me check on that.
Like I know we had to pay more this year than last year.
The
than we
principal
budgeted.
portion is the smallest portion, but I don't,
Did
yes,
we
I
only
don't,
put one of them in there?
I don't know. I'm gonna have to check that.
I'm almost wondering if Whitney Hall didn't get put in there.
It's possible.
So I highly doubt our debt is going down 200,000.
It's probably gonna be just about even. Oh, it should be, less than the actual, it should be pretty even.
So that's a big change if that's actually gonna happen.
That's accounts. 07.
But that's accurate. Instead of paying $190,000 less or 5.23%,
It's almost zero,
probably even,
close.
give or take.
Yep, we'll get that updated for you. So with that,
So the difference is 2024 budget had a prior year encumbrance and this year it does not. Is that correct?
Prior year encumbrance is. It's in there so we can keep track of things. When we do the budget for the town meeting, none of that is included. It's added after the fact. just so we can track it.
Right, but I'm just explaining why the numbers are
The
different.
total.
Oh, they might be. They-
$200,000.
So if you look on page 48
Of the big package.
of the big package, you get the breakdown.
Yep.
No, but that makes a lot more sense.
It does make more sense.
So that's still expense, that 487, the top line, that reflects the,
The
Additional.
encumbrances, right? The actual expense?
yeah. That probably includes the double payment or the payment we've had.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
So-
let's double check that, but I think
Double
you're right. We're probably good.
That's what I was gonna say, if we found out we had to have another payment, that would.
Yeah,
And I
but,
said that, thank goodness we encumbered that 200,000.
Right.
right, but we went,
I wish we would have
That's what I
encumbered the whole thing, but.
but we went down then from 687 to 270. I wish I had my presentation from last year.
Yes.
So yeah, let's look at that and just make sure. it's-
Yeah, we'll double check it.
Because the question really is the principal on the two buildings roughly 270? That's the question,
Or 459.
or is it a bigger number?
So the prior year, the 459 includes the $200,000 that was from the prior year
Well,
ago.
this
So if you take that off.
because it's 487 spent and 200,000. spent. We'll double check
Yeah.
that.
Okay,
Can't answer it now.
Sure that it's right.
Just curious, under the heading of budget notes, why are the numbers just repeated?
Well, that is, you should have received a copy of an email in your packet that I
Yes.
sent you. That sort of explains it.
Okay.
Well,
We-
I saw the frustration in between the lines.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, so
Me
we
too.
had, the budget worksheet. When we went to the cloud, it did this. And they fixed it, AccuFund did, behind the scenes somehow, and they got the notes in there.
Just for that report.
For the, well, right, sort of. And it was kind of working, but then I was working with this year's budget project and we needed to adjust some accounts. I couldn't adjust the accounts and it's apparently an unknown issue to them. So I had to delete the budget project. When I deleted the project, it dropped 2 columns in my report. I have no idea why. There should not be connected. So I added the columns, but I'm back to the original problem that I had when a year or 2 ago that they fixed.
At least there's still a business, at least you got a response.
So
A week later.
it was a while because I
That's
put a
good.
ticket in on Tuesday, got no response. I called on Wednesday, got no response. Thursday, I changed my problem from not being able to adjust the accounts to not having the notes shown. And then I got the email that says it's a known issue.
That's what about.
Yeah, the IRS is still using ASCII files, so.
Hmm.
So
And
a week may be good, but it's not good when you're trying to prepare a budget project and your finance software is not working.
I didn't say it was good.
so it's early. Oh, sorry.
Good.
Go ahead.
No,
It is early in the budgeting process, right? But one thing we could do is, so we have the 75 of interest, right? Use that to actually reduce the use of fund balance for last year. And still have the same amount of taxes reduction, right? Move the 75 from fund balance to next year. Use that to pay for the software. Following?
And I still. may be able
Essentially
to-
use the interest that they got on the loans to pay for the finance software upgrade.
And I
You
will,
have to do a little bit of this because it's in the wrong calendar year. But at the end of the day, we'll be using the interest from the CDs and the buildings to use for the finance upgrade.
we'll do it and I'll work hard to get that 75 down too, but it's something to definitely talk about as we move forward, but.
Depends where the other department heads come in.
Yes. That's why I said it's early.
Like I said, we'll continue working on that. I had the same type of idea with some of the healthcare savings. I think we'll save more than that, but it can help offset. So we'll be doing some of that.
Did you end up going with the plan that John Foley recommended to you, or?
We're still looking at all three of the ones
Oh,
we're
you have three.
looking at, but, I'm looking at his. They're at the same place. I just talked to Harvard Pilgrim and the New Hampshire Interlocal Trust doing that, and, they really don't want to give us numbers till we get our new numbers from Health Trust, and they'll know exactly where our usage was at and stuff, and they can get us good numbers. So
Yeah.
we're in the final phases. We kind of know what we want to do, but we want to see everybody's proposal, then we'll make a.
So he just pointed you in the right direction?
No, we've got a quote from him. I've reached back out to them and I'm asking them to run me a couple different numbers to try to see, really, you know, his system. So on the PAF system, he ran a number, I think he ran 100% deductible funded, and I'm having him run a couple different scenarios to see what that
He
looks
just
like.
changed companies, I found out yesterday.
Did he? That's why, yeah. I've had other people from them calling us and.
Yeah.
So we're still looking at Rogers and Gray.
Yeah.
I need to call them back and get those extra couple numbers.
I'm talking to him tomorrow, so I'll find out where he went, who's gonna cover for him and all that.
Yeah, I have the people from Rogers and Gray that's covering for them.
Okay, okay.
They've already been in contact
Awesome.
with me and they said, we're kind of taking over now. Well, they didn't tell me he left to go somewhere else, but I read between the lines and said he's not there anymore.
Yeah. And I guess it's a sensitive topic because when someone at that caliber leaves, they end up taking clients with them and all that, so.
Yeah. But anyway, we'll keep working through all of those. I'll just throw a little bit out there. It really doesn't matter a lot right now, but Rogers and Gray's looking at, well, we're looking at going with one possible high deductible plan and funding some of the deductible. Health Trust is still in the mix a little bit. I don't like theirs as much because they have an HRA program. They only let you fund 50%, which I think could be a big kick to the employees. In the change, what I want to do is kind of segue around something like that. And then Harvard Pilgrim told us yesterday that they would recommend offering a high deductible plan with an HRA and a very similar plan to what we have now, but the employees would have to pay a higher percentage of that one to equal out. And he said sometimes that helps a lot because the ones that are just comfortable where they're at and afraid to make the change can pay a little more out of pocket to stay where they're at. So we'll be looking at those three different options. We'll make a decision of one and we'll bring it back to you, but we're looking at both sides of that, you know, what's gonna work for the employees and what's gonna save the town a lot of money. And we're also hoping in that we can save the employees some money, which increases their compensation really. Or their ability to pay bills anyway.
Dave?
At our last meeting, Eric Russell, mentioned, a goal bottom line of CPI, which is, as of last week, down to 2.5%.
We've agreed to
please?
go CPI off July to July,
Right.
Yeah.
so don't keep changing it.
Yeah.
And I wasn't aware of that, as part of, since I wasn't part of this meeting. Still, 2.5% is current. And it would, I don't see a bottom line for administrative and the things that we covered today, but seeing some of these numbers, I don't think it's anywhere near, either 3.5 or 2.5. So where else in the budget can we expect some, reductions?
But we'll continue looking. I mean, if you look at the overall, this one says -5.3.
Yeah, but that's with
It'd be
the,
close- it might
gonna
be
be even.
closer.
It might be closer to even if we find that, so. You know, we'll continue looking at that and we'll talk bottom line when we get to the bottom line.
even is a good story, right? Good story if you do that total.
You can stand at 3.5. I think you're showing a good story, because you didn't increase with the cost of living.
Yeah, I'm not so sure the average taxpayer would agree with that, but I realize that it's a challenge, right?
Our costs go up just like everybody else's costs go up. So even as a reduction in everything,
After a 30% reduction, increase in 2 years, a small reduction might be worthwhile.
well, it is on the tax side, and it's a loss of service on the other side. So, I mean, we can have that discussion, but you have to know an even budget is a reduction in service.
Whether or not it's significant.
And where it impacts and what it is. So we will have those discussions.
Anything else?
Ed and I have had a discussion before. He, I think philosophically disagrees with me, but I think that software purchases should be part of CIP. I believe that software purchases this day and age, given their large amounts, are indeed capital expenses. It is a capital expense according to generally accounting accepted principles. I checked several of the major accounting firms, and it is now considered a standard practice to consider major software purchases to be capital expenditures. For that reason, I'd like to recommend that the board go back and consider those expenses that are projected for next year to be kicked back to CIP for consideration.
Just the new software or all?
Well, there's 100,000 worth of new software that's considered 25.
Where's the other stuff?
66.
Well, you've got 62,000, 68,9, and also 32. Am I reading that correctly?
The 32 in the software line.
Oh, yeah, that one, I said the 32 is gonna move. Cause we just left it there, but it's gonna end up being a server. It'll get moved up. We have the finance software is what we're looking at, and if we wanna add it to it, the 3,000.
Well, certainly the expense itself that you have to purchase would also be part of a capital expenditure. I'm just looking for something that is a large ticket item that could be considered as an alternative funding suggestion.
Not that it's free money.
I'll say,
Yes.
no, I'll say
It's
that,
certainly
because
not free money.
PIP
It's all
was never
tax money.
set up
Don't get
for
me
that.
Yes,
It is all tax money. There's no question
And
about
I
that.
think it's a slippery slope.
right. I don't disagree that they're capital, where I work, big software upgrades were viewed as capital. But CIP wasn't meant for that. And it's just the left pocket, right pocket, right?
Well, I'm not talking necessarily CIP fund. I'm talking CIP by the definition of capital investment plan. In other words, I believe that software and purchases for a server which exceed $10,000 should be part of a CI plan.
Don't
Not
disagree.
necessarily part of the budget, which is part of the CIP request from the taxpayers every year. It's part of the plan, however, these things be considered.
So didn't everything above 10,000 have to go through CIP approval?
It's goes through the software we could put through there. I would still disagree with the server and computers, and I mean, we took radios and stuff off last year.
Right.
Because it was gonna be an ongoing reoccurring expense every year.
Sounds
every
like
2 years.
software is too.
Yeah, it shouldn't be, but.
Well, I felt the software because it has a multi-year life. Certainly, that is something as a server does. So as a capital expenditure, it fits more cleanly into a longer term.
Depends if you lease it. If you lease it, it's part of annual. That's actually where I used to work. They would actually prefer to make it leases because then they can not make it capital.
It kind of is. Half of that is an annual service fee,
Okay.
but it's still $35,000 worth of labor and setup and all that stuff.
Service fees can't. I don't think.
Yeah.
I'm in the middle of an audit with my business right now, and it's a nightmare, as all audits are, but I'll ask, see what they have to say, just out of curiosity.
I have no problem about talking about it there, but I definitely don't think it should be funded by the CIP fund.
Right.
That'd be a mistake.
I understand Tracy's logic though.
Sure, yeah, I do too.
And I'm not criticizing Ed. He has an honest opinion that just happens to be different from my opinion.
That's okay. We can disagree.
Please
Joe.
understand.
Or you disagree.
I see it too. I just want to understand more of it because it could be a slippery slope.
Yes.
If a $30,000 software upgrade should go through CIP, then what else should?
Well, and I don't think you're often gonna see it hit the 6-year plan and move through the CIP. It's gonna be, this isn't being supported anymore, some of this, there may be a few of them that we can plan. We'll probably be planning most of them 3 years out or so, but I don't see it much farther than that.
I mean, it seems to me anyways that the CIP has sort of like blossomed because I feel like years ago, that was like, you know, for police cars, fire trucks, that sort of thing. And I just feel like it keeps sort of opening up to, I mean, I sort of have mixed feelings about this software thing. I can understand Casey's logic, but I know what Ed's saying. So I don't know, it's like half a dozen of one, kind of the other.
Just in the inflationary economy, certain things which might have in the past been considered expendable are no longer expendable if they have a multi-year life.
The rule is usually 2 years, right?
Tracy, given that the funding comes out of one side of taxpayers' pockets or the other, what difference does it make?
CIP also allows the possibility of financing the purchase.
Yeah, but we're not gonna find that software.
I'm not questioning that. I'm just saying that that's a point of discussion.
To me, I think this is more of a budget committee discussion than a CIP discussion.
Yeah. The lease fees definitely are not. Right, because only the part that has 2-year life. So that would be half. That
Well,
would
and
be
really not.
$30,000.
I guess that's the thing with software. You're not purchasing a software program that you put onto your server or download. It's labor of transferring all our stuff to there, and then it's annual fees. Because it all lives in the cloud. You don't have anything on your actual devices.
Which is good and bad.
I'm
I
curious to hear
have a
what your
complication.
author says.
You know, SaaS, software as a service, is now a function of the purchase.
It's all in the cloud, it's all in the cloud, your data is safe.
So it's not.
Until it's not.
Yeah.
I think we need further discussion on software. Anything else?
So I have a couple of questions, sort of in general. I'm wondering, what, or is it possible, Ed, to know what the account numbers are that represent the safety complex, the library, and Lakeside Park? So we can really see sort of what's going on.
The safety complex and Whitney Hall are the debt service lines.
The ones we just talked about.
Right.
Like,
Like
I mean, there'll be
Lakeside,
a few others and I'll point them out to you that, and they're not for the construction, they're for buying some chairs or desks or those types of things once the construction's done, but the construction's the debt service.
There's no report that shows, this is the number that you're planning on in terms of cost for the safety building, and this is where we are. There's no.
right,
no
yeah,
report
that's
on
sort of what I was.
No, and I'm trying to get that out of Brent though. It's a moving target. I mean, I can show you what we've spent today. But that's not really what we've spent today, because there's bills coming in soon, and I mean, I'm trying to manage where we're at. As of right now, we're under budget, but. I
But
can't
there's
tell you
bills that have
where.
not been processed, the invoices that you have not received.
Yeah, we're still fighting over something.
And what about Lakeside Park? Like, is there a place you can see sort of what's gone on, or?
We can get you some stuff. We can show you what we're showing them, where we're at, and what's going on.
Okay.
but it doesn't live in one line item. It's,
Yeah, I'd like to see, it doesn't have to be detailed, but in general terms, where we are with Whitney Hall, the public safety building.
Right.
You know, where is it coming in at? And what's your best guess as to where it's gonna finally end up? And are we under and over and how much?
Whitney Hall will show up soon, but I'm not really gonna know till we're really close to the end.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no, we're literally, when I say we're fighting over bills, we're fighting over bills, but right now, most of the allowances have not been used. Winter allowance, structural allowance, we haven't touched them. So, I mean, we have a lot of money there. We were over budget knowing by 130,000 with the elevator, so some of that's gonna offset
So
that.
these allowances will go to pay some of the overages in other places.
Yeah, but I think overall, right now, we're coming in under budget. I just don't know how much. Then there's some lines in there that we've been looking at that, you know, there was 120,000 in furniture budgeted that we don't even plan on buying any furniture right now. But if there's a little left, we might need to use some of that to that. So I think overall, we're gonna be really close to on budget on that one. Which,
Yeah, I think for a transparency viewpoint, I think the town would like to see something.
we can post it when we're done of
Yeah.
where we're at and where the money went and. You know, I think we really need to do that.
Because that's a question you get asked a lot.
We signed a guaranteed maximum contract at this amount and
For
that's
both
where,
of them?
yes,
Yes.
and that's where.
If
That's
it
where they need
underruns-
to come on, except for change orders.
If it underruns, what happens to that money?
It comes back to us. For Bread Loaf, it comes back to us 100%.
Yeah.
On Neely and Chase, like I said, we made a little bit different deal where the contingency anyway, if it comes under and they haven't spent their contingency, we split that 50/50. So
Reasonable.
we did it that way. It sounds good to me that they're gonna try harder to keep costs down.
Right, yeah.
Bread Loaf has no
It's
motivation to keep costs down
Right,
because they have a guaranteed maximum contract.
right.
So
So we would have the numbers for the Whitney Hall building by the town meeting, right?
yes. And I can get
That should be a
something,
slide.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
People will wanna know.
Yeah.
I can get something where we think we're at for
Yeah, yeah.
public safety. It may not be a great number type thing, but we can say by then we're coming out of winter. We can say, what did winter allowance look like? Where are we at here? You know, are we coming in under budget? Are we over budget? We shouldn't be over budget because they have a guaranteed maximum unless we have a ton of change orders, which we've had very few on the public safety building.
Well, and then maybe from that point of view, we don't even talk about the public safety building, we just say there's a guaranteed max.
But here's the Whitney Hall.
Here's the Whitney Hall.
Yeah. And we're also not on a lot of change orders on Whitney Hall. I think I signed number 18 today, which isn't a lot for a contract out there. And some of those are deductions and some of them are increases.
Another question I can think of that, as far as dispatch services to Hanover, is that a fixed contract or do we get charged per call?
I think it's
It's fixed,
I think it's a fixed contract.
Okay.
they just decreased it,
I
right?
can double check, but then I think it's a fixed contract based on what our call volume has been. So it's kind of both, but I don't think it's a so much per call per year.
Anything else? Motion,
Make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good evening.
I'll ask, or you can ask that question again when the police chief comes in.